You're listening to Your Rivers Are Wrong, the podcast.
Good morning, everyone, or afternoon, or evening, or night,
Or night?
because we deal in time zones here. Welcome back to Your Rivers Are Wrong, the podcast that me and my co-host do every week. Great. I'm one of your hosts, and my name is Merle.
And I'm the other co-host. My name is Dante.
Yeah. And in this podcast, we tackle the wonderful whimsies of world building, the arts and aesthetics of setting up a setting, telling stories in that setting, all the beautiful stuff, all the nice things.
All the nice things.
What episode are we on? We're like way past 50. This is like season 5.
We're way past is a strong word, but we're on
Humbly
episode
past 50.
52. And technically we've done 2 half episodes. So there's 54 episodes. This is the 54th, which is quite a bit.
Yeah.
We're in that weird transition period where we're recording episodes before they come out. So we're sitting between
It's bad
season
for
4
my
and season 5. The rest of you are hearing this a little bit later. Well, it's good for editing, but
Yeah.
it's bad for planning because the numbers get all finicky.
Yeah. I'm usually already bad at planning. So if we're like pre-recording anything, my brain just refuses me.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, how you been, Dante? How's your week going?
I've been good. The week's been solid. No personal updates this week, honestly. I guess we could just say that we completed our playthrough of Tangled Blessings, which we've been singing high praises of for like 2-3 weeks
it's
now.
amazing.
Which is wonderful. It's so good. I think that game comes out end of April, beginning of May. So it might be out by this episode or a little bit after that. If you're into Dark Academia, 2-player games, just the weirdest mix of terrible curses and
school life.
and if you're a fan of school, you should probably play this. It's very fun. But that's my endorsement. I'm not getting paid for this. I'm just
also,
a really big
we
fan
did
of the
great.
game.
It's kind of arrogant to say, but we made such a good story. I'm so proud of us. It was very exhilarating.
Yeah, we basically made the agreement that we would not publish this game like anywhere on the internet. So we just went like
ham. Yeah.
Crazy.
For sure.
I was trying to look for the right word and I settled on crazy because we like no holds barred, anything goes, things not okay for public broadcast. We were like, let's tap into this special sort of horror and we really enjoyed ourselves and it was great. Yeah. Also, I wanted to bring this up because this is not something that really matters to anybody, but like us, we look great today.
We do look nice today.
I'm just going to say it. Like you got your haircut, looks fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Super cool.
Yes, I did.
The reason I'm leading up to this is because we've already prefaced in our intro that we live in different time zones. Marla is 6 hours ahead of me because she lives across the Atlantic Ocean. So when we record, and this is something that newer listeners might be interested in. When we record, one of us is either break of dawn or at dusk.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So last time we recorded episode 51, I think. Oh, no. When we were playing Tangled Blessings, we were playing over stream on video. I wake up at 5 a.m. in basically my pajamas to stream this audio only podcast. And then Merle comes like dressed to the nines on the other side of the world.
Because I'm like halfway my day by then, right? You just woke up, literally.
Yeah, you're halfway into the day. You're ready.
And for me, it's like 12 or something. Or was it 11? Yeah.
You're ready to handle whatever you got to handle for your day. And that's great. And I love that for you. But I felt like there was a cognitive mismatch in me waking up in my jammies and you already ready. So today I wanted to kind of match your energy just a little bit, just like, prepare myself and get myself ready for this audio only podcast.
And you look sharp, my friend. If only for me,
Thank you so much.
At least we can talk in the audio about how sharp you look.
Thank you. Yeah, we look great and you'll never know. One day this podcast will be video.
Not today.
Today is not that day. Today is not that day. You'll just have to take our word for it.
On the other side of that too, like we play D&D a lot, which is for me like late at night when I'm like kind of falling asleep if I don't pay attention too much. And where you guys are just still vibing in the afternoon and it's like light and stuff.
Right. We can distinctly tell what time of day we exist in by like our windows during the live video stream.
For sure. Yep.
So, my window's still dark. Your room is fully illuminated by the break of day. And that's how our podcast runs.
And we wouldn't want it any other way, would we?
We wouldn't want it any other way.
Yeah.
Also, you have some life updates. I don't know how much you want to say about it, but you had something amazing happen.
Oh, are you talking about the thing with Cherry? Yeah.
Yeah.
So Cherry and me, Cherry, the wonderful friend of the podcast, Cherry, with whom we did a guest episode as well.
Episode 28.5. Yes.
She's amazing. She's a very great friend of me. And we were starting an art collective to be able to apply for funding here in Holland, because we've got some great funding programs. And so you have to basically write a whole application, and it's pretty boring. But if you do it well, you might get money for making art, which is great. And last week,
might get money.
We received the notion that we are through to the next round, which means we get a bunch of money to make a final plan. And if our final plan is chosen, we get a lot of money for making art. And it's really great and very unreal, because I don't understand this concept yet, because I feel like I'm not ready for funding being real instead of just being like a dream on the horizon.
The professional art world.
Yeah, exactly. So that was great. That was some good news. Yeah.
Fantastic. I feel like it goes very understated on this podcast that you are like exceptionally talented in the arts.
Okay.
Like, I'm pretty sure you won an award earlier this year for like writing.
No. I didn't win the award. I was in top 5 for a short story.
Top 5. Perfect. That works too. Yeah, that's a lot more than other people can say.
Which sounds very fancy.
But I feel like it goes understated.
I guess that happens.
So I wanted to send you your flowers.
Thanks.
Congratulations on the progress. That sounds fantastic.
All the fingers crossed now, because it's very scary to write a plan and people pay you to write that plan. So if your plan's bad, I feel like I'm wasting the €1,000 that they're giving me, which is a lot of pressure. But
no, listen.
It's exciting. I think we're going to be like handing that in May, if I remember correctly. I have to read this better, but so that's going to be thrilling, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Very exciting.
Any other updates before we jump into this?
Not on my end.
Okay. Fantastic.
I know a bridge for this one because I'm the host, in case you forgot about it.
Go for it. Nice. Yeah.
Talking about dramatic character changes and appearances, for instance, cutting up a lot of your hair or looking sharp in the morning.
Yeah. Speaking of a haircut.
How fluid. I'm always so great at this.
Oh, we're so professional.
I am your humble host for today, which means that I get to pick the topic that we're going to chat about. Inspired by my haircut, I guess, or just in general. I was thinking a little bit about how sometimes in storylines, there's this specific plot point where characters drastically are changed in a very short time. Not just appearance. Sometimes people come back from a war and are scarred.
Yes, of course.
And the people that thought they knew that character are suddenly in this limbo of, is this the same person? How do I deal with this new version of you? Is this a good change, or is this a change that's too drastic? In the literal sense, right? This reminds me of like the Mulan scene where people cut off their hair and it's very symbolic and very, I'm a different man now. The sort of dramatic character change, I would like to call this, can be very much a device for storytelling and a device for sort of moving your character along, either in a good way or in a bad way. So I thought let's have a little chat about it. I find the two sides of it interesting, which is on the one hand, in a lot of animation series or something, you very often see that when people are appearing differently or they have a drastic change in color scheme or something, right?
Sure.
Then suddenly they're either cursed or, in visual media, you need like a very specific signifier, I guess, and to show it efficiently because you have to draw it like 1,000 times, how someone has changed or what is different about them. Whenever someone's cursed or whenever someone is going through a lot, they have like a darker color scheme. And I think that's the very, the most cliche sort of boxed in version of what I want to talk about a little bit. Yeah, so I just want to start by tossing this to you. Do you have something in mind already for dramatic character changes, or do you even like them? Do you like it when it happens?
Oh, yeah, of course. Dramatic character changes is something that is part of what makes time skips so fun, right? When you assume that a great deal of time has passed, and this is a little bit of a counterpoint to you saying sudden change, because technically it's gradual, but for the audience, it's sudden, of how the character has changed their visual dynamic, changed their attitude, so to speak. Every anime time skip is coming to mind right now. If anybody remembers, I think the first one that I really experienced was like, at least in anime, was the Naruto jump from their previous kid self to like a technically a little bit older teen self, and they all like grew 6 inches. They all had new outfits. They all like looked super fresh. Everybody who like kind of grew into the trope that they were moving towards in their younger years. Like some people became more professional looking. Some people became more evil. Some people kind of leaned more into like their clan's imagery. which was fantastic. Another one that exists that's coming to mind is One Piece. One Piece towards the later half of the season or the series, probably actually like 10 years in, now that I think about it, because this has been a very long running series. Yeah, 10 years of serialization. Finally, you have the 2-year time skip. Everybody comes back. And they have like, some of them have like new injuries. And it's like, okay, what happened to you when you were gone? Some of them get really, really buff. There's like a robot character who's like now twice the size they used to be. And everybody just generally ages up and becomes more confident into what they were moving towards, which is so cool. And it gives an opportunity to be like, wait a sec, what happened? Can we talk about what happened? Because that seems really exciting. All the characters you've invested so much time into have this drastic change, and you want to, just the same way you keep up with a friend. If you see them after 10 years and they look drastically different, obviously, if you're invested in them, you want to know what's changed, what's happened, what's new. In the same way with literary characters. Yeah, so sudden change is super cool.
I think for sure it also immediately reminded me of like high school reunions. Did you ever do one of those?
Oh, no. Well,
man.
I mean, you're
missing out.
I've seen friends like 5-6 years after.
Oh, okay.
But not like a formal go back to the school and meet everybody kind of reunion. No.
I've had like one of those, but also our graduation class was really great. So it wasn't like a lot of tension to like present yourself a certain way. I can imagine there's going to be so much pressure if you didn't like your classmates or something. But it was really, really nice because it's exactly what you just described. 5 years going by in sort of an instant because you haven't thought of them in 5 years. Quote unquote, suddenly they've changed a lot. The thing that's so powerful about it is the kind of shock value of it. All of a sudden, things can change massively, and you'll have to kind of retrace your steps. How did it come to this? Both in good and bad ways.
Right.
The good thing about time skips, or what time skips are giving a story, is the greater contrast between who someone was and who someone is now. Because the longer time passes, the more time you have to change. If you change a lot during that time, it's very visible if you then compare the before and after kind of. In terms of like anime, right, what you were talking about, I had to laugh a little bit because in anime it's so typical to not even let characters change clothes at all. They all look the same all the time because it's just so hard to draw, or you just need to draw it so much that you can't give them a wardrobe. That's not a thing.
Of course.
If they change clothes ever, it's got to be a big deal. It's got to mean something, right? Or in, the superhero transformation scenes, right? We talked about this a bunch before. It means something that suddenly they wear something different. There's literally a whole like montage sequence about the fact that they change clothes. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think if you kind of go purposefully overboard a little bit in terms of how much you change a character, it instantly becomes a sort of plot point, right? Because people are going to notice it. The other characters will have to deal with it because there's such a big change compared to the previous time. And I think this also happens a lot in the more kind of slice of life, like royal-esque genres, where appearance is a very big part of someone's character or identity.
Right. Yeah, sudden change is so interesting because it kind of does story backwards, so to speak. Whereas when you gradually see somebody go through events, you can see them gradually change, right? And the events leading up to that change. But when you present the change first, you kind of have like a backlog of plot points that you can go back to and reference in terms of like, hey, this actually happened in the past and my appearance now is indicative of what happened. So the power of time skips, to bring it up one more time, is that you kind of load your whole character cast with plot points you can pull from for the future. You kind of pack it all into them, like in their pockets, so they can pull it out whenever you need it.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Which is tremendously potent because whenever you need a character growth moment, you could always just refer to an event that happened in the past that we skipped. and it's extra story. It's extra time for story to develop. And it's so interesting for these characters you developed. Also, when we're thinking about like sudden change in terms of, I think of like The Dark Knight, I think is a movie. I'm not sure if that's the one with Two-Face, but it's the one with the Joker and Two-Face in the same movie by Christopher Nolan. And basically, the character that plays Two-Face is just a prim and proper politician, very presentable towards the crowd, kind of wins them over with his charm. But halfway through the movie, he is involved in an accident and half of his face is entirely roasted off. a huge change in his visible appearance that is almost disturbing to look at. And suddenly the metaphorical two-faced politician is now very literal two-faced, and he loses the power he has to command audiences just simply because of his visage alone. And what that does to his mental and his future prospects and what he can do and what he can be changes immediately. Suddenly his villainous side, which he's hid very well, I guess, his duplicitous side, is very obvious and apparent, and there's really no point in hiding it anymore now that this change has happened to him. So I guess we could talk about how change sometimes is purposeful and sometimes it's incidental. Sometimes you're reacting to a drastic change, like a character suddenly losing an arm, which happens in every Star Wars saga and every Marvel series, and, you know, or a character losing an eye, and suddenly you have to make that integral to your personality and your progress because you're losing something very, very valuable. And it's always visible and always in front of you, regardless of who you're interacting with. So, yeah, there's a lot of potency in story when tapping into these things that either force characters to be very different or are loaded up for the future to tell people how people have changed.
I think that would also tell us as the readers or watchers a lot about the character's connection to their appearance. If their whole identity is the way they dress, if that way of dressing suddenly changes, either, you know, purposefully or not,
right,
that means that their whole identity has changed, perhaps.
Of course.
We have to figure out what that means, kind of. And if someone doesn't care about appearance at all and suddenly they look super slick, sometimes it can be very disconnected as well, right? As you were talking about, you know, characters losing arms and stuff, it reminded me of a documentary series. I think it was on YouTube. I forgot the name. It was very interesting because it was basically a documentary of a guy that was very, very heavily burned by like a super horrible accident. He was looking very hard to recognize. Once he started talking, you would understand kind of more how his muscles would work in this new, I guess, form.
Oh, wow.
For lack of a better term. But it was also awesome because he was like the most positive person in the world, which was very respectable and awesome. But he talked a lot about how suddenly this sort of shell that he's in, which is usually, you know, just your own body and, you know, the way your face looks, is suddenly so not what your inside feel like. The disconnect is so big.
Right. Interesting.
It's almost as if people are reacting to something else because that's so not me, even though I live in it.
Right.
It's a little bit sad, but he would talk about how kids at his daughter's playground would react sort of in shock or would start crying when they would see his visage, and he wouldn't realize that he was it, that he was the sort of reason for that, because he just didn't feel connected to the outside that he suddenly had to sort of walk around in, you know? That's a very real example, of course. But in terms of storytelling, I think once something changes so much that you lose connection over it, there's a very interesting, weird character dynamic within one character happening. And it reminded me too of a very awesome graphic novel that I've read, I think a year ago or something, and still one of my favorites. It's sort of a grim new fairy tale-esque graphic novel by Emily Carroll, and it's called Through the Woods. And one of the stories is two brothers are living somewhere in like a rural area, and one of the brothers is very jealous of his older brother. He feels very much in the shadow of his older brother. During a walk in the woods, I think we see the younger brother killing the older brother and leaving him in the forest and coming back. Then 2 days later or something, the older brother has returned and nothing has changed. Literally, the panels of the comic look the same, like the same situations happen, but you constantly see the younger brother in the back looking horrified because they know what happened.
Oh, right.
There's one sentence that says, "It seemed like nothing changed, but I knew this wasn't my brother."
Oh.
Right? So
dang.
It's kind of the negative of what we're talking about, right?
Right.
Where only one person or one perspective knows that it's not right, what we're seeing, but everything looks the same. But it's definitely cannot be the same because we know what happened before.
Yeah.
It's such a good story because that first page is already this panel of, it looked like my brother, but I knew he wasn't my brother. And then we see the sort of storyline, you know, rewind a little bit, and then we start to understand what's happening. But it's such a cursed sentence, and I think it's really cool.
Yeah. There's something to be said about stories where the change in it is involuntary, right? Where the inside and the outside are not harmonious. You know, this is not a sudden change, but when you think of the Beast from Beauty and the Beast.
Oh, yeah.
This refined, like, rich man, theoretically, has had his reputation ruined simply because he was cursed to look like a monster, so nobody can kind of take him seriously or treat him as like a human being. Every werewolf story has the same dynamic where suddenly you become a monster and you have to convince people that you are otherwise, right? speaking of fairy tales, if we pulled to a D&D campaign of Dimension 20's Never After, which is centered around fairy tales, one of the players plays the Frog Prince. And this is a theoretical world where the frog falls in love with a woman, becomes a human being, and the story kind of continues after that, where his ability to remain human-like depends on his romantic dynamic with his new wife, with the princess. So as that relationship deteriorates, he slowly becomes more and more frog-like, fearing he'll fully revert into what he used to be. And there's this whole thing where he is struggling with his own self-image that is inherently tied to his romantic connection to somebody else. And it puts a strain on that dynamic.
Oh, I love that so much.
Where it's like your own ego versus like, what is a healthy relationship with somebody else? And it's super stressful throughout the whole campaign, but it's a very great story of like self-actualization. But right, visual change is the fastest way to let people know that something has happened to you, right? You touched earlier on like a change of clothing can indicate so much. And I was tempted to make this an entire episode topic on its own, how clothing is so indicative of a character's personality, of how they portray themselves, how they see themselves, their confidence level, any drastic changes, their station in society, and how they fit in with the greater world. Like clothing is one of those things that you could just change on a whim immediately, and it instantly changes the perspective of the character and the kind of full motif of the character. So it's a very potent storytelling tool.
Yeah, and I think specifically there is also why that disconnect between it, if it happens at all, fascinates me, because it also ties so much into culture and what group you're belonging. It's very typical when you're studying at an art school. It's a very distinct look that people got going. It's very ironic because I'm wearing a turtleneck right now and I'm shading on the people that wear turtlenecks all the time. But, you know, it's very funny. For instance, in some cities in Holland, you really see when there's a university and you have like the students that are living there, and then you have all the other people that don't have a distinct look. By which I mean, clothing or appearance is also very much a social thing. It's a communal thing to look similar to your friends because then you feel similar. It's sort of an indicator that you belong or you feel like you belong in the people that look similar to you. Or, you know, there's like a familiar, either literally, you know, family or a found family bond going on because you have the same feel to you.
Right.
So if that feel is off somehow, it also reminds me of the Critical Role campaign 2, right? Where not the little goblin girl is very unhappy with that she is a little goblin girl. That's her whole arc. That's a big part of her character development, that she wishes to change it or that she looks not the way that she feels. I really do have to say I like that storyline a lot. You can't get out of your own body, you know, you sort of have to deal with whatever you got. If it's done well, it's a really nice arc, I guess, that you can go through as a character.
I was literally talking about this with coworkers yesterday, where we were talking about, how often do you dress well? Like, how often do you choose to like be more presentable, so to speak? And my answer was, hey, well, I only dress well. Well, I don't really need to dress well because I have a uniform at work. So I kind of immediately change out of it once I get there. So if I were to dress up or like change how I look or change my appearance, it would only be experienced by the people like on the bus and the train. And that's it, right?
And
so
yourself,
is it worth it?
But yes.
Yeah. And that's the question. Would you ever just change specifically for yourself, specifically for your own either self-esteem or confidence, or just to wear something that you never get a chance to wear? Like very much the onus of change is on yourself. And because the visuals is such a huge aspect of that, simply changing your clothing or how you present yourself or how you take care of yourself, it's not necessarily for everyone else. It's often just for you, right?
Yeah.
So when we talk about characters and stories who now suddenly dress different or wear something different or have these new things all about them or their new appearance, very much of that is self-actualization. It's realizing where that character story was headed and then letting them finally click and go for it, you know, and then finally like fully realize themselves. So yeah, a huge story beat, which is fantastic and so fun to play with.
I guess for me, the most important beat in this storyline of changes in appearance is the nuance, right? It reminds me of the sort of typical coming of age where suddenly, you know, a 14-year-old girl decides that she's now a gothic person. Her whole wardrobe changes and she wears only black and she wears all the eye makeup and all the piercings and all the whatever, which is totally valid and fine and you should do whatever you want. To me, the most interesting part of such an arc is once the nuance starts kicking in, right? So I had this, now I am this, where's my sweet spot? No matter how drastic, you will be the one piloting it, right? So the art in this, I think, is finding the nuance, the sweet spot of all those things that you're trying out outwardly and seeing which ones stick and which ones make the best combination that makes you feel most like you, I guess.
Yeah. Often the culmination of a character is them realizing how much of this sudden change they want to keep, right?
Yeah, like, that's well said. Yeah.
Like for every story that involves like werewolves and stuff like that, you always keep a little bit with you, you know? No matter what you result in, whether monster or human, you always keep the parts that are most important, cling the closest to what you want to hold on to. And that's always so crucial.
Yeah, for sure. Very, very good.
Great topic. So fun.
Yeah.
What a great topic. Great, you know what? Great lead up, great intro leading into the topic. I think we really, that is professional work right there. Look at that.
Professional.
Look at us.
We like matched the whole concept here. Yeah. We did like a full, I love it. Yeah. If only we applied for funding for this, we would have gotten it for sure. Yes.
I'm sure. Absolutely.
Yeah,
next time.
For sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, tying it back in. We round our episodes off with a nice little world building / storytelling prompt instigated by one of us, in this case, me.
Instigated is a good word.
Dante, in this case, doesn't know at all what the prompt's going to be, but he's going to have to execute it. For this one, I think it ties in very nicely. It's maybe even obvious. Of course, we have to talk about a character change. So here's what the prompt is going to be for this episode. I want you to make a character that gets the chance of their lifetime and comes back a different person. And no one knows what happens.
The chance of a lifetime.
Where does it start? Where did they go? Or what did they do? And what's the changed version look like?
Okay. Well, obviously, I don't want to go the Princess Diaries route, which is like when the kid realizes they're a royal and suddenly they have that whole glam session.
That's the easy version, yeah.
So I'm trying to subvert the trope.
Also entertaining, but yeah.
I still have fun. Okay. Give me like a strong name, like an impressive, imposing name, so to speak. One probably like too old or impressive for like a high schooler. Like it's a name like you kind of have to live into, you know?
Yeah. Oh my God. Okay. Yeah. I know what you're saying though. Do you want like fantasy? What's the vibe here?
No.
All that's like, in my brain is like Viking names. I don't know why.
Give me a Viking name, actually. You know what? That might be good for subversion.
Halvar. There you go.
Halvar. All right.
Sure.
Okay, let's go.
Up for grabs.
Halvar Johnson.
Yes.
It's coming in. You know, it's the break of September. The air is brisk. The autumn leaves are gently falling on the white stone steps of Bluebell Academy. And everybody's coming back from their summer break. Some people are showing off their new clothes. Some people are showing off like the new haircut. And, you know, all of the football players are coming back. They all got their jackets. A lot of them promoted to varsity just recently. And they're all showing up. But a bunch of those dudes in particular are waiting for a friend that they haven't seen in a good long time. Halvar Johnson, star quarterback of the Bluebird.
Yes.
Give me an animal. I need an animal. That's not a Bluebell something. I need an animal for the mascot
Wolves.
of this thing. The Bluebell Wolves. The star quarterback of the Bluebell Wolves, Halvar Johnson.
Yeah, let's go.
And you see his car pull up. He comes from a very rich family. It's a long car, and everybody's kind of crowding around waiting to see what star athlete's going to show up as. And as he opens the door, comes out wearing ordinary black slacks, pulled high up to his waist, a white button down, and a pocket protector on the side of his shirt. He's got these new specs that he places on his eyes. On close inspection, it's not necessarily like prescription. It's just like square glasses.
Oh, okay.
For the look. And he's glasses. He's toting like a big backpack full of textbooks that fit on his broad back. And he's a little bit hunched over, and he just kind of waddles into school, a little bit unassuming. And people are like, oh, I didn't know Halvar had a brother. And they're kind of looking around for, you know, their quarterback. But eventually people are like whispering. They're like, wait
a minute.
Halvar? Did something, what? Seems a little less of an athlete today. What happened? So the people go through their classes. Everybody's bumping into him, and he's kind of quiet about it. He steps into all of his classes. Even on the first day, he's already very knowledgeable about all these new topics. he's clearly read whatever the first couple chapters were for that subject, and he's nailing all these topics that he would just have never have studied in sophomore year. And there's so many crazy changes to Halvar Johnson, you know. And eventually, one of his best friends on the football team, after like a week of this, one of his best friends comes up to him. Give me a letter. I needed a letter for this guy's name.
S.
His name is Sterling. His best friend Sterling, the running back on the football team. He goes over to Hal and he's like, "Hey, Hal, listen, you look a little bit different lately. Did something happen? You okay? You feeling sick?" And Hal was like, "No, this is just me. This is just who I am now." And then
is that how he talks? Yes, I'm so happy.
Yeah, no, of course he talks. Yes, of course Halvar talks. And Sterling's like, "Hey, yeah, we got our first practice in 2 weeks. You're coming through, right? We got some early games sometime in October," and that's because that's definitely football season. I would know.
We're so good at sports, obviously.
Halvar is like, "Oh, I don't know about that. Maybe I'm thinking about, there's a couple of exams that'll be around that time, and I really want to focus up." And Sterling looks worried. He's like, "Al, did something happen? Are you okay? Like it's like you can talk. Yeah, I mean, bro, we can talk this through. We really need you for this upcoming season." And Hal is like, "I don't know if that's really I really want to be anymore. Sorry."
Ooh.
And Sterling backs up, lifts his hand, and says, "Hey, man, like I'm here, and I tried, but help us, help you on your own time, I guess." And Sterling leaves. And Halvar has this moment where he's alone in the room. All of his friends have kind of pegged him as like a new nerd, so to speak, and have left. And the whole room is quiet, and he just kind of sits there. And Halvar reflects over the summer. He dials into a time on the beach where he's hanging out with some friends that he hasn't seen in a long time. And they're kind of from his childhood age. And they're all looking at him like, "Oh, Hal, you've gotten so big. You've gotten so grown. Do you want to hang out and do we got some board games in the back you might like. You want to play or just spend the summer together?" And Hal, during that time, kind of realizes how he's distanced himself from a lot of the things that he really enjoyed growing up. He has a very vivid image of him going through high school and feeling left out at the very beginning, working out to join a football team, kind of get this fame and acclaim that he's earned through the first 2 years of high school. And in doing that, he's kind of lost who he was growing up. And during the summer, he just spends 2 months with these guys who bring him back to earth and remind him, "Hey, you used to have a lot of fun. Like, what happened?" There is this kind of turning point, so to speak, when he arrives in autumn. And Halvar, to kind of make this a story that wouldn't be a very good book, Halvar would be spending the next few months bouncing between the things that he loves, kind of taking an opportunity to learn different parts of the school, hang out with different people. Every week he would be dressed somehow very different and kind of meet the people of that clique or of that group or of that hobby. And it'd be very confusing to everybody who Halvar is in that time. But by senior year, it would dawn on the people around him that Halvar, I guess, going into junior year towards the rest of his high school career, becomes very introspective, starts to think about who he is, what he loves, what he enjoys, and that certain aspects of him are not necessarily mutually exclusive. That you don't have to be just a jock or just a nerd, that you don't have to have this hobby which excludes you from this hobby. And he experiences what a lot of people go through, that there can be more sides to one person than meets the eye. And to fit into the prompt, chance of a lifetime, and kind of becoming the person that you really want to be, I kind of want to leave it on the note that not everybody has that realization moment. And sometimes that moment happens much later in life, even after college, to understand exactly what you've been looking for and not have an opportunity to meet that until many years have gone by. So Halvar, in getting this chance of a lifetime, is grateful that it happened early, during the formative years of high school. And that's the prompt.
Halvar. That was like some real introspection going on that I wasn't expecting with that. That very trope-worthy high school start of the prompt. I
didn't know where I was going till the end of it.
Yeah, that's how prompts work.
Yeah, I wanted to try like secret backstory stuff somewhere in the middle of that. But maybe the secret was just the friends we made along the way.
Yeah, it definitely was. Obviously, life-changing are the friends we made along the way. It totally makes sense. I dig it. Yeah. This was great.
Yeah.
I feel like I need to revisit Hal. I want to see a timeline of him now, right?
I want to talk to Hal. I want to see how he's doing. I want to see what Hal's up to nowadays.
Yeah. Is he still quarterbacking? Who knows? You know, he needs a documentary or something.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Good story.
Very well. You did great.
Okay.
This was great.
Thank you.
We're so good at
prompts. I did the
best. And with that said, let's round off this very beautifully chaotic episode of Your Rivers Are Wrong.
Mm-hmm.
If you guys, by the way, want to reach out or have any prompts that you think are great or that we might be very bad at, also interesting, send them our way. We have a Gmail. It's yourriversarewrong@gmail.com. We love to hear from you guys. Also, there's like a lot of you now.
There are.
It's gradually growing. Isn't that funky? I sort of realized that because yesterday I was hanging out with friends and they were like, oh yeah, how many listeners do you have? I told them about it and they were like, wait, that's a lot of people. And I was like, oh yeah, I guess you're right. That is a lot of people.
That is. I don't think it's fully sunk in that sometimes we have triple-digit listeners per week. That's crazy to me.
That's a lot of people.
It's actually beyond me.
And very beautiful because that means that y'all are hanging out with us and it's still, we're doing something good here.
Yeah, of course. If any of these topics have interested you, you can watch our episodes in literally any order. The first 10 minutes might not make sense, but honestly, they never make sense. But feel free to enjoy the rest of the episode. And almost 100 topics we've covered since starting this podcast.
Yeah.
So very, very exciting stuff. Thank you so much for listening.
There's only this one thing that we haven't covered yet.
Yeah, there is the one topic we've been kind of putting in the corner for a while.
Yeah.
Huh.
Should we do it next week, maybe?
Something about rivers being wrong? Is that a next week sort of thing?
Oh, they're wrong. Okay. I'm going to have to think on that a bit, though. So let's park it for now.
Park it for now?
Yeah. We will revisit this at some point because it's a very interesting subject. Yeah, obviously. It's literally the title.
Yeah. But until then, have a wonderful week and goodbye.
Yes.
Bye now. Thanks for listening to this episode of Your Rivers Are Wrong. If you have any thoughts for topics, prompts, or if you just want to share your thoughts, you can reach us at yourriversarewrong@gmail.com. That's yourriversarewrong@gmail.com. Big thank you goes to Martin Skelligans for our intro and outro music. And most importantly, thank you for listening. We hope to catch you at our next episode. Have a good one.